think he's very motivated, and he doesn't need external motivation. He's one of the most competitive people I've ever been around. You can see that competitiveness every time we step out on that field. As far as like the meetings that we've had going on, they've been outstanding. Every time we get together, he just continues to prove why he's the leader of our team. We've got the majority of our team returning, so they understand the expectations, kind of what it takes, what they can expect from myself, from our other coaches, what they should expect from each other. They know how we practice. I mean, there's just so many advantages to having that first year under our belt. Now, we understand that also, especially with how we performed in year one, there's going to be some heavy expectations. And, you know, we've all got to be ready to embrace those and make sure that we're doing everything in our power to get better each and every day so we can live up to those.
How's everyone doing today? Good.
Matt, what are your initial impressions of the Seahawks?
They're a tough team. You just look at they've been extremely tough on the road as well. And we're just kind of digging into the early stages of the prep. But, you know, I thought they played a physical football game yesterday. Obviously, was glued into that game. And it's going to be a great challenge.
Yeah, it's probably too early, but they are, I think, 8-1 on the road and 10-2 in close games or something like that. What do you see in that regard?
Yeah, just like you said, and I mean they're tough to beat on when they're away from their home stadium, which is kind of an outlier in this league, especially when you look at the home field advantage that they have with their fans, with their stadium, and hopefully we get our fans nice and loud this weekend, and we'll have quite a home field advantage here.
Mike, Matt, now that you're through it, what do you think you got by the time off last week and what you guys worked on?
Yeah, just again, it was more or less just taking a good hard look at yourself and what you could do better. I think it afforded our players an opportunity to get their bodies right. We've had a little bit of sickness going around, so that certainly didn't help things. But you know, hopefully we're healthy, ready to go this Sunday.
Matt, I forget which game it was midway through the season, but you said that there was an opportunity to challenge a PI that you didn't because the way it's been going. Did your approach toward challenging pass interference change at all now that this is postseason?
No, I think it's going to stay pretty consistent to the mindset and how we've approached it throughout the course of the season.
And Matt, the Saints obviously lose the first game yesterday. Can you what was you and your staff's approach then after you knew that second game's winner was going to be coming, and then how did you approach this morning, et cetera? Yeah, no, it was more or less you were locked into the second game and knowing that the winner was you were going to be playing. So, and then we kind of dug right into our initial stages of preparation this morning and had the guys in here and went out and practiced, and it's going to be back to watching tape.
Matt, do you get to sort of expand on each segment of what you'll do during the week? Is that what an extra day does, or do you just focus on one thing, use this as something different than you would do during the normal week?
Anytime you have a couple days off, you just want to kind of knock the rust off the guys and just get them out there running. We did some 2-minute situations, some stuff that we haven't hit on in a while, and so it was a good productive 1 hour on the field.
Will you go pads like Thursday?
Yeah, that's the plan right now.
Now, you guys have had such good health all year, and then last week you didn't have 4 or 5 offensive linemen. What does it mean to get them all back working? I don't know if Elton was sick or whatever, but what did it mean to have those guys back now and kind of get them back into the swing of things?
Well, it's always good when you got your guys out there, and like you mentioned, Elton, he's a little sick right now. It's been going around here, so just trying to remind the guys that they're doing to practice good hygiene so they don't get sick. We need everybody at their best this weekend in order to advance, and it's got a lot of respect for Coach Carroll. He's been doing it a really long time at a really high level, and we know that he'll have his team prepared.
How big of an advantage do you think it's been for you this season to have those 5 guys be healthy together for virtually the entire year?
Yeah, I think it's a huge advantage. Just that continuity. I mean, it's priceless, especially when you're talking about your offensive line. So I think it's definitely it's been great for us.
You've said on a number of occasions there's a lot more in this team. Where do you think that could come? What kinds of things do you mean when you think this team could take another step or two, or however many?
I just think putting 4 quarters of consistent football in all 3 phases. It certainly hasn't felt like we've accomplished that, although we've found a way, and that's what's a credit to those guys in that locker room is they find a way to come out on top. But I just think in terms of the consistency in all 3 phases for 4 quarters.
Are you preparing for snow or factoring weather in any of your practices?
Not really. I mean, it is what it is. I don't know how you can necessarily manufacture snow out there for practice, but no.
Do you do wet ball drills, any of that?
You know, I'm not a big fan of that, but I've definitely been some places where we've done that, and you know, I feel pretty comfortable with the guy that we have under center. That's usually who it affects the most, is that quarterback center exchange. And those guys have been doing this for a long time in a lot of different conditions, so I'm not overly concerned with that.
What don't you said you're not a fan of it, what doesn't do it for you?
No, it's just it's a pain. We did it a lot last year, and you know, I think guys adapt. I think the officials do a pretty good job of keeping the balls dry during the game, and it almost it definitely makes it a lot worse in practice than what you're going to experience in a game typically.
That's good. Thank you.
All right, have a good one. Take care.
Despite the W, the story out of Green Bay is regarding an animated exchange between quarterback Aaron Rodgers and coach Matt Lafluer. Both downplayed it, and the Packers are 2-0. Is this looking for a feud where one doesn't exist?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of an overreaction, but knowing the context of Aaron Rodgers and his history with a little bit of tension with previous head coach Mike McCarthy, it's understandable why people would jump to these conclusions. And Rodgers in his career has always had an issue with his body language and how he reacts to certain things on the field. He gets very frustrated very easily. And when McCarthy was his coach, he would often discuss with him, how to control his body language. So this has always been something that Rodgers has struggled with. And that history is important here. But I think it's making too much out of this certain instance. Rodgers, after the game, said, they weren't telling each other how much they loved each other. I believe that was his exact quote. But it was a healthy discussion about something that they saw in the defense and happened after the Packers had, I think it was a 3-and-out or definitely an incompletion on 3rd down. So there was a little bit of frustration there. But, I think they worked through it. And I think the bigger problem is finding consistency with this offense. We saw them get off to such a hot start yesterday, which was much better than their week 1 offense, where they were held to negative 12 yards by the Bears defense in the first quarter of week 1. This first quarter went a whole lot differently. They had 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then the rest of the game, they scored once more in the second quarter, and in the rest of the game, they were held scoreless. And it seemed like Rodgers had sort of lost that gel that he had found early in the game with Devontae Adams. So that's something that's more of a concern for me, is this offense being consistent through 4 quarters, because we have not seen that yet.
with Matt Lafluer in Green Bay. So Matt, you're a new coach. You have one of the flagship franchises of any sports team in the world. And there's a lot of people around the world right now who are big Packer fans but who don't know you. What would you say if you had a group of Packer fans in front of you right now? What's the message you'd want to give them about your team?
Well, about our team, first of all, it's such an honor to be in the position that I'm in. You talk about the Green Bay Packers, and it still feels a little surreal. The other night when we had family night was the first time it kind of hit me that you're the leader of this football team.
Where you're looking at all the crowd,
Yeah,
and they're there for a little practice.
How many times do you get over 50,000 at a practice? So that was such a unique and incredible experience, and one that we just talked to our players about. This doesn't happen anywhere else. It's in Green Bay. But I just think, the one thing that we want to be about is I value character, and I think that when you look at our not only our players but our coaching staff, we have good people, honest, hardworking people that enjoy the daily grind, that enjoy helping each other become the best versions of ourselves, and that's what we're about on a daily basis.
How have you been struck by this job and sort of the weight of this job? You're in Vince Lombardi's chair, and are you totally over that, or does it still hit you when you go down Lombardi Avenue or Holmgren Way or whatever?
Honestly, it really hasn't, because there's so much to do.
Yeah.
It's just like you finish one thing and you're on to the next. So for me, it's just trying to stay in the moment, stay focused on the task at hand, and whatever it is that we need to get done.
One other thing a little bit about the past. You told me a story in the spring about how you found out you were getting the job. You were driving in a car with your wife. Can you relive that moment and what it was like for you and your wife?
Yeah, so we were on the way to pick up my son from school, and we were.
And at the time, your home is in Nashville because you coach with the Titans.
Yeah, we were in Nashville. We were on the expressway, going to my son's school, and a few hours earlier, I had just talking to Aaron Rodgers, and my wife and I were just talking about the whole situation and how I felt pretty good about where it was headed, whether it was, quite honestly, I thought it was going to be more of a second interview. And then I got the call from Mark Murphy and Goody, our GM, and, offered me the job. And that's when it was a surreal moment, and I'll never forget. I looked over.
Were you driving or your wife?
No, my wife was driving, which was even scarier, because I think she covered her hands or covered her mouth with both hands, and so I guess the car was driving itself. But no, it was an incredible moment, one that I'll never forget.
Fast forward to today and what you're doing here. What has been your message in a football sense to your team? What have you told them about the kind of team that you want to be?
Yeah, we kind of rest on what I like to call the 4 C's, and that's our football character, and how coachable we are, how accountable we are, how everybody's accountable to one another, whether you're a player or coach. Just competition, just trying to bring out the best in each other. The communication component, that's so imperative to driving our success, and then consistency, and that is the truest measurement of performance.
I want to talk a minute about your relationship with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, anybody who coaches the Green Bay Packers is going to benefit from having Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback. Can you tell me, what has it been like as a working relationship so far, and how would you say you have worked together with him?
It's every day is it's so much fun. When you have a guy with that level of experience and the football acumen that he possesses, we challenge each other, and I think that's going to bring out the best he's going to bring out the best in me, and certainly I hope that not only myself, but we've got Nathaniel Hackett, who I can't speak highly enough about, and Luke Getzey in that quarterback room, who we're always bringing ideas to the table on how we can make this offense and really help him be the best he can be. So it's been a lot of fun, a lot of great conversations, but at the same time, we like to have fun in that room as well.
Is it at all intimidating for you, coming from the position that you have, to be, hey, I'm Aaron Rodgers' boss now?
I don't. To be honest with you, I don't really look at it like that. You know, I look at it as
what, Aaron Rodgers' co-worker or something?
Yeah, I think anytime, and I know it's different, you know, being the head football coach, but just from a play caller mentality and somebody that works closely with the quarterbacks, I've always viewed that relationship as more of a partnership, because he plays the toughest position in all of sports, in my opinion, and you want to make sure that he's comfortable with everything you're doing, so that there's that constant communication that's going on, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and that he feels comfortable and confident in what we're doing, because I know if he's confident in what's going on, the other 10 guys in the huddle are going to be pretty confident.
We'll end with this. Your life has taken a drastic turn, obviously, going from, you know, an assistant coach in Tennessee to be the head coach in Green Bay. From last year to this year, how has it been to have so much of your privacy taken away?
You know, it really hasn't been that big of a deal, to
Really?
be honest with you. No, it really hasn't. I mean, you know, Green Bay, they recognize you, but, you know, this summer I took a bunch of trips and I could walk anywhere and nobody had a clue, which is the way I'd like it, the way I prefer it. And but the people in this city, I can't speak highly enough of everybody here. Just, I'm from the Midwest, so I feel like, you know, we all have similar values, and everybody's been so kind and warm and receptive, but also respectful, especially when I'm with my family out in public.
Matt, good luck this year, huh?
Thank you very much.
Matt Lafluer in his first season as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, a 13-3 record. Pretty good when you consider what some of the other guys have done in their first seasons. And when you look at the other coaches and how they accomplished at a high level right out of the gates. George Seifert taking the baton from Bill Walsh and had Joe Montana. Barry Switzer taking the baton from Jimmy Johnson and had the triplets.
And Troy Aikman, right.
Bill Callahan, Rich Gannon.
Right.
Rich Gannon was actually the MVP 2002.
Right.
Jim Caldwell taking it from Tony Dungy. Matt LaFleur.
And had Peyton Manning.
Right. And Matt LaFleur taking it from the guy who got fired because he didn't do enough in 2018 and 2017. Now, he's got Aaron Rodgers.
Yes, that's right.
But I think what Matt LaFleur has done, given that dysfunction that resulted in Mike McCarthy being fired, I think it's the most impressive of any of the names on that graphic.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, first off, I think the other guys that took over far better football teams, or teams that had less questions about it. Let's just say it that way. And Matt LaFleur, can't say enough about him. I mean, I know I was very skeptical about him getting hired. Matt LaFleur, like Joe Judge of the New York Giants, is one of those guys where I put like a star next to his name, like, will be a coach one day, but didn't think he was ready quite yet. Well, he crapped all over me with that one. He showed he was ready, and I think he's been very I think it's his people skills and his ability to have a relationship with Rodgers, have open dialogue, not be scared about talking to the media. That was the first test he really passed with, like, I think, flying colors, and that's led to what we've seen now.
You know, I'll get guys, coaches, players on the phone after the early games on a Sunday to try to get some sort of nugget we can share on Football Night in America. And the day I got, and usually it's they have to go. They got stuff going on. They have limited time. They really can't, so I got to get what I can and move on. I could have talked to Matt LaFleur, and he would have continued the conversation.
He's a great guy, a great
great
guy. He is, and I think that's what part of his charm and why the team likes him. I think he can talk to them like almost like, hey, yeah, he's our coach, we respect him, but he's like one of the guys. He's like one of us, and there is something to be said about that as far as a head coach and him being a personable.
Aaron Rodgers may not like the product of the Packers draft. That was Peter's first big takeaway, the slap in the face that Aaron Rodgers absorbed. And I mention that because yesterday, Bob McGinn, who covered the Packers for 38 years and has more recently been writing for The Athletic, he had this quote that just slapped me in the face when I read it regarding the decision to draft Jordan Love in Green Bay in round 1, trading up to get him and then otherwise loading up the running game after that. Public niceties aside, McGinn writes, my sense is Matt Lafluer, the coach of the Packers, simply has had enough of Aaron Rodgers' act and wanted to change the narrative. With a first-round talent on the roster in Jordan Love, the Packers would gain leverage with their imperial quarterback and his passive-aggressive style. If the Packers do indeed want to become a running team next season, they surely wouldn't want Rodgers rocking the boat and becoming even more difficult to coach. I mean, there's a lot in there that we could probably spend a segment on each sentence in that paragraph, Peter. But, I mean, McGinn covered the team for 38 years, and McGinn still knows that team better than any other team. I mean, there's stuff there that surprised me because I thought Aaron Rodgers was happy last year. I thought the passive-aggressive stuff ended when Mike McCarthy got fired. He went on and on after they lost to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game about how he loves football again with all these players who have come in and helped with the leadership, and the players are empowered under Matt LaFleur. What gives, Peter?
Mike, the really interesting thing out of that, and obviously I have more respect for Bob McGinn than any beat writer in the country. He's unbelievably good. But the biggest deal in all of what he said, and now the stuff that's come bubbling beneath the surface, is that, last year, basically Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers had sort of, I don't even want to call it a truce, because I don't think it came from any place of anger or defiance or anything like that. But Aaron Rodgers was going to get to change plays and change a lot of plays. And I will go back in time right now, Mike. And everybody says with Drew Bledsoe and Tom Brady that the real story behind that was that, Bledsoe got hurt because he was hit and plowed into the sideline by Mo Lewis of the Jets and had life-threatening internal injuries. And what we now know about that is Bill Belichick was already sick, and so was Charlie Weiss at the time, the offensive coordinator. I'm not saying sick of how often Drew Bledsoe changed plays at the line of scrimmage, but I think Belichick basically felt at the time that, hey, look, we work all week on doing this stuff, and now you're changing all these plays. Why are we doing that? And again, I want to find out. I want to know how many plays last year did Aaron Rodgers actually change from Matt LaFleur's original call? And he's got a lot of freedom, but did that freedom sort of backfire on him? Now, we're going to find that out pretty soon. But that freedom that Aaron Rodgers had, I now really wonder whether he took that freedom too far.
Well, maybe he did. Maybe he did take it too far. But what's going to stop them now? I mean, they better be careful, okay? Because they're just, to a degree here, they've empowered him here for the next 2 years too. Because he could just be like, hey, screw all of you. Looks like you want to replace me. Oh, you wanted to run that 96 power King running play? Forget it. I like to throw a slant over here to Devontae Adams. So, I think that's the interesting aspect of all this, and I don't really know what Green Bay's thought was. I mean, obviously they're planning for the future. Do I think Matt LaFleur, was a little taken aback by last year by the fact that, he made some comments during the season. I was going back looking at a few things last night where he talked about, like, he felt weird in the fourth quarter because he wasn't doing anything, because he basically just went, okay, Rodgers, you take over. I don't think Matt LaFleur is the type of person that's like, man, I can't believe, Rodgers took away my power in the fourth quarter. I'm going to take it back. I don't think he's that type of guy. I've been around him before. I do think he was genuine in his, love affair that Rodgers did bring so much to the offense last year. So I'm not so sure I can get behind all the things in that report. And, Don McGann, I know, is an unbelievable writer and he's awesome. And I'm not trying to, say he's lying or anything like that. But I just don't know what that thought process is right now. And I guess my big thing is Green Bay better be very careful about how they approach this, or they're going to really lose control of this guy and he'll do whatever the hell he wants.
Well, Don McGahn, the former White House counsel, may indeed be a great writer. Bob McGinn also is, though, Chris, just to make sure.
Damn, I'm on a roll.
But here's the thing, and Peter, you hit the nail on the head, because last year it was that column from Mike Silver, your former colleague at Sports Illustrated, now at NFL Media, who tapped into that, the audible thing, as Matt Lafluer called it, the tension that existed between the Lafluer offense and Aaron Rodgers wanting to have the freedom at the line of scrimmage, not have his hands tied by this plan to have 2 plays called in the huddle, and then the quarterback, based upon a predetermined set of factors, would determine at the line of scrimmage which one to use. He doesn't even have discretion. He has to make a decision based on what he sees, not what he thinks is going to work. That ultimately swung in Aaron Rodgers' favor, and he ended up with the full freedom to change the play whenever he wanted. I spoke to Matt Lafluer after they beat the Bears in December, and he said, I have full trust in Aaron Rodgers. There was a touchdown early in the game on a 4th and 4 play from the Chicago 29 where Rodgers changed the play, and Lafluer was like, what the hell is he doing? And he scored, so it's like, that's fine. But, Peter, I still think that at some level it does create tension within the coach. Like, there's a system that I use. There's an attack that I have honed that helped me get this job. At some point, I'd kind of like to use it. And I don't know how actively they try to rein Aaron Rodgers in, or, Chris, like you say, whether it will even work, because I don't think it will work. I think the next year or two is going to be very bumpy and very rocky in Green Bay until they get to the point where the cap hit won't be devastating to move on from Aaron Rodgers. But Peter, I really, I thought what was there last summer had been resolved, but reading what Bob McGinn wrote and hearing your reaction to it, it really makes me think it hasn't been resolved. It was just kind of tucked under the covers to be dealt with another day.
We'll see. Mike, Chris is right. It's going to be a very interesting time. Plus, I mean, what is unfortunate, in my opinion, for the Packers is that they're not going to be able to get together much this offseason. Who knows? Aaron Rodgers might not shake Jordan Love's hand until August 20th. And they might not get together. So we don't know exactly what is going to happen and how things are going to change. 2 points, though, Mike. Didn't you find it very interesting? And I talked to Brian Gutekunst on Sunday. But didn't you find it very interesting that Brian Gutekunst went out of his way at his post-draft remarks to basically say, we want to run the ball. We want to be, we're going to, it sounded very much like he was saying, instead of being 60-40 pass, we're going to be 50-50 now, or something like that, or that's what we want to do. That's the first thing. And that's why drafting A.J. Dillon, which to me, I don't know. You got 2 running backs that are pretty good right now. You desperately need a wide receiver complement to Devontae Adams. I keep coming back to that. I'll come back to it until the Green Bay Packers play a football game and blow somebody out with, Valdez Scantling and Equinemius St. Brown and all that. And the Packers say those guys are going to be good players. Okay, let's see. But my biggest issue now is 6 years in a row, 6 years, the Green Bay Packers have not drafted a wide receiver in the first 3 rounds, and they have not spent significant money on a wide receiver in free agency. If you're Aaron Rodgers, what are you thinking right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm with you. I don't understand what Green Bay's thinking. I mean, hey, you're talking about the wide receivers, Peter King, and I'm with you. That's confusing. I mean, I think you could argue Aaron Rodgers has been like the greatest one-man band in football the last 8 or 9 years, maybe until the last few years with Russell Wilson. But it's been a lot of underwhelming receivers and offensive weapons. And, man, is there a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers on a week-to-week basis. That was the thing that's always bothered me. It bothered me about when Mike Holmgren was there. It bothered me again last year. There was moments where you just go, man, can we just find somebody that can maybe catch a slant and run for 70 yards? Does it always have to be Rodgers dissecting a team down the field and having to make throws that nobody else can make, like we saw in the Seattle Seahawks playoff game or many other examples? So, and the other thing I'll say, too, here is, with the offense thing, I just don't know. You know, again, what I want to say is Matt Lafluer, who I have respect for, okay, and I still think probably got this job a little early or before he really deserved it, for lack of a better way to say it. I mean, his year as an offensive coordinator with the Tennessee Titans, they were what, 27th or 29th in football on offense. And when you apply for the Green Bay Packer job, you have to know what you're applying for. So I would think Green Bay knew, and Matt LaFleur would know what they're going to get when you're going there. Okay, yeah, we're going to get the coach, one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen, but also a quarterback that we know, yes, changes, has always had free reign throughout his career. He wasn't just going to give that up. And I think Matt LaFleur would have known that, and it was so successful in so many moments last year. And I still think with Rodgers under the center in big moments, Green Bay can pound the table and say, we want to run the ball all we want. When it comes down to 3rd and 2 in a big moment of the game, Aaron Rodgers is going to go, hey, I like my O-line. I like Aaron Jones, but I trust my right arm in Devontae Adams more. So I'm going to throw the ball here. And I don't think that's going to change until they get rid of Rodgers. And that's where it's going to get very interesting here in the next year or two.
For me, and then we have to take a break, I think it comes down to the old cliche, if you can't beat them, join them. And when we saw what happened to the Packers when they went to San Francisco in January and got blown off the field, they got blown off the field not by a passing game, they got blown off the field by a running game. And like in the aftermath of that expertly designed Kyle Shanahan attack, where Mike LaFleur is an assistant coach. He's a passing game coordinator who had nothing to coordinate that game because they ran the ball down the throats of the Green Bay Packers. Instead of beefing up the run defense, instead of beefing up the passing game,
right,
Matt LaFleur wants his own running game that he can now trot out, and he can be the genius like Kyle Shanahan who designs these runs and wears a defense down and beats a team that way. And if it means Aaron Rodgers gets thrown overboard at some point in the next couple of years, so be it. Well, the full story is now out from Mike Silver of NFL Media. We had a snippet to discuss yesterday, and it came from Aaron Rodgers questioning the wisdom of restricting his ability to change plays at the line of scrimmage in the new Matt LaFleur offense. The full story makes it clear that there is a pressure point as it relates to what LaFleur called the audible thing. Because the way they do the offense, Chris, they've got 2 plays that they come out of the huddle with. And the quarterback is taught how to determine based upon specific criteria which of the 2 plays will work given the defense that he sees. And that's it. That's your freedom. You've got 2 choices, and you're told how to make that decision by the coaching staff. Aaron Rodgers wants more freedom than that, and both guys are talking freely about it. That's the thing that astounds me more than anything else, that they are openly talking about this thing that is unresolved and may be resolved in LaFleur's favor and may be resolved in Rodgers' favor.
Well, I think, one, it's a positive thing that they are speaking out about it like that publicly.
How? How is that positive?
Because
how can you twist that into a positive?
Because it just shows that it's not tension, that they're willing to go like, hey, yeah, this is my offense, and Matt LaFleur, I learned this from Kyle Shanahan, and yes, this is the way it's implemented. But he's realizing, damn, I got one of the greatest of all time, and he's done a few things here, and he might be able to teach me a few things at the line of scrimmage too. So I think they're hashing it out. I'd rather hear it, this way than, a little bickering here and there, and it's not getting hashed out. First off, the context of Aaron Rodgers' quote yesterday and everything certainly looks a lot different when the article starts out with Matt LaFleur addressing the audible thing, right, to start it off. So, I mean, again, we all wanted to take shots at Rodgers for being passive-aggressive and why he said it, but obviously this is a real conversation that's going up there in Green Bay, and they're going to have to find, what works for them. I don't know. Am I crazy, Mike? As awesome as I think the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay offense is, I would think Matt LaFleur would be crazy and would want also Rodgers to make some of these things at the line of scrimmage happen that he's done so well in years before. They just got to figure out what formations, what personnel to do it in, but it's only going to help LaFleur's offense and make Rodgers more comfortable within his offense if you give him a little bit of that flexibility.
Isn't that something you get resolved, though, like on your way through the door when you hire the guy? Like, shouldn't Mark Murphy, the CEO of the team, understand that Matt LaFleur comes from that Kyle Shanahan kid playing Madden level of control over a quarterback. And I remember during the lockout in 2011, I mentioned this last hour, Rex Grossman knew that he was going to be the starting quarterback in Washington because he was going to do everything Shanahan wanted the quarterback to do. That's how you impress Kyle Shanahan.
Yes.
You do exactly what he tells you to do.
Yep.
And if LaFleur's bringing that to town, it just seems like they should be on the same page in that regard the moment he's hired, not as we're going into this 4 to 6 week lull before the start of training camp where they have to figure out exactly what they're going to do, because now they're back into no contact mode.
Yeah.
You can't work it out now. You're going to have to work it out when you convene training camp in late July and into early August.
Yeah, well, I think the thing, these are conversations that go on organically, as you install the offense and do those things. First off, Matt LaFleur has not proven that he's Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay yet, right? We all want to see it to believe it. We know that there's a lot of positives there. I never doubted that he might be a head coach one day. Do I think it's a little early? Yes. But his offense didn't necessarily just blow me away last year with the Tennessee Titans. It did not. So I would think he'd want Rodgers to have, some of that line of scrimmage freedom there. But what really happens, Mike, at least realistically in my mind with these type of conversations, new formation, new play. Rodgers asks a question, what if they bring this blitz? He goes, well, hey, the offense takes care of this blitz with this play. And, Rodgers goes, well, in the past when we got this, I used to audible to this, and, man, we would get, 10, 15 yards off it every time. And now LaFleur might go back and look at some tape and go, damn, he's right. That's kind of a smart play. Okay, Aaron, there's the green light on that formation. You can audible in that one. And I just think it's an ongoing conversation, but they just got to figure out where the line is to where it goes, okay, that's too much for Aaron Rodgers in the line of scrimmage, and now you're ruining the flow within the offense, and just, having that balance to go, no, let the offense work, and Rodgers, when things are really bad or in really trouble, this is when you can get us out of jail here.
I went back and looked at the Tyler Dunne story from Bleacher Report from early April for some clues about this tension as it relates to Aaron Rodgers doing too much.
Right.
And the comparison made by former Packers running back Ryan Grant was artificial intelligence, that at some point the AI takes over. If you let Rodgers do too much, he will do too much, and he will freelance, and he will tell the receivers, I know you're supposed to run a flag route, run a post route, do it my way.
Right.
So there's, I think, a range of healthy freedom that you want to give Aaron Rodgers, but you don't want to give him a blank check.
Yes.
So at some point there's going to be a barrier. The question is, Chris, will he accept any barrier, or does he want to have essentially Peyton Manning freedom to do whatever he wants at the line of scrimmage? That's really the issue.
Mike, I think you're right. That is the issue. Yeah, where is that barrier, and, is he comfortable with it when it does get set down? And that'll be on LaFleur and the offense to prove it to Rodgers, to go, hey, you don't need to audible all the time. The offense is damn good.
I just didn't feel like we played with the same urgency, the same tenacity, the same toughness. We didn't set the edge the same as we had been earlier this season. And, it's disappointing because it's not like we didn't know what they were going to try to do. We knew exactly what they were going to try to do. We knew they were going to run the football. And for them to be able to do that was extremely disappointing. And I just didn't think we played with the same effort as what I had seen earlier in the season.
Matt LaFleur from Wednesday, meeting with reporters in the aftermath of the loss to the San Francisco 49ers that entered the Packers season 14-4. Not a bad first season for Matt LaFleur, but Chris, he wasn't happy with how the defense played. And during that press conference, he suggested that, and the way it was interpreted was that maybe Mike Pettin wouldn't be back for a third season with the team. Remember, he predated Matt LaFleur. He was a holdover from the Mike McCarthy staff. Later in the day, it was announced that Pettin would be back for another season. LaFleur's right. They knew what was coming.
Yeah.
But if you just physically can't stop it, it doesn't matter if you know it's coming.
Well,
right?
Yeah. Well, there's so many things that factor. First off, the 49ers are a Super Bowl team. Second off, we saw them in person, right? How crazy and loose they can be before a football game. I mean, Rodney Harrison on the pregame show, right, last week when we were there for the Minnesota Vikings games was concerned. He was like, I was on one of the greatest teams in the history of football. We were never this confident before games. I think he was taken back by it. But Shanahan has created a culture there, one, by his scouting and the kind of players he get there. And, Mike, we've had this conversation. You know, he's got a bunch of guys that just like he says run through the wall, and they run through the wall. They don't think about, like, the consequences or anything. They just go, coach told me to run through it. Here I go. Zoom. Water boy. You know, but a lot of guys in the NFL, you tell them to run through the wall, they think about it for a second, and then they go, okay, screw it. All right, I'll do it, coach. Yeah. And they have that. Added to the fact that, you know, I think you're right. You know, the 49ers had great belief. They have the intensity of a Super Bowl team. You know, I always think of my dad. In 1985, they played the Bears in a playoff game, and he always says that was the wake-up call, that they realized that they needed to raise their level of intensity another notch for them to go to the Super Bowl, and it helped them for 1986 to do that. But I think this was a team that got blown out by this team early in the year. I think they went into the game with no confidence. I'm watching the pregame show, and I was thinking the same thing. I was going, man, San Francisco seems loose and ready to fly around, and Green Bay seems kind of nervous and reserved. And that, to me, is on the head coach to instill that confidence or false confidence. And whether it's some game plan plays early to get you rolling, whatever it may be. But, yes, they looked like they were shell-shocked after the second drive of the game. And they went, oh, no, this feels like the first time we played. Can we really beat them? And nothing ever gave them the confidence to get over the hump.
And remember, it was John Fox who got fired by the Broncos after a playoff loss because John Elway, the GM of the team, said he wanted to see more of an effort to go out kicking and screaming when it was time to lose in the playoffs. It was after they had lost to the Colts a few years ago. And you mentioned the impact on the Giants of losing to the Bears in the 85 playoffs. You know, it was the Bears losing to the 49ers.
Niners in 84, right.
23-0.
Right.
On the plane ride home, that's where the seeds were planted for the 85 Bears.
Right.
They were upset that they got manhandled by the 49ers, that they got shut out by the 49ers, and they were determined that the next year it was going to be different. And I just wonder how much of Matt LaFleur's frustration from yesterday is a combination of, one, we got our butts kicked even though we knew what they were going to try to do, and maybe number two, he hasn't detected yet that sense of determination that they're going to do what they have to do to compete with the 49ers. Because, you know, Aaron Rodgers, after the game, when he looked like he had just come in from 3 months out to sea, his words were way too optimistic for the ass-kicking the Packers had just taken.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I think the window's open, and I think we're going to be on the right side of these one of these times soon. Not if you have to keep playing the 49ers, and they can come out and tell you what they're going to do and still do it to you, and you can't stop them.
No, yeah, you're exactly right. You know, Green Bay's got to get tougher up front on both sides of the ball. There's no doubt about that. You know, they weren't as good as pass-protecting offensive line as they've been in years past. And, yes, they were better in the run game, but not to where I was just going, oh, my gosh, they're just steamrolling teams every week. No, it's not that way. So they got to get better up front on the offensive line, as we saw in the NFC Championship game. The defensive line as well. I mean, hey, yes, I understand that they knew the 49ers are going to run the ball. But this was a defensive line that's not talented. Other than the two guys on the edge, you know, that's just not that special on the inside. And neither are the middle linebacker play. So they got to really improve that. I mean, you're watching the 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs go to the Super Bowl, and they're teams that have 8 and 9 defensive linemen who can play at a time. They can just keep rotating in fresh bodies. Green Bay can't even do that. So, one, they were compromised that way, which forced Pettin to do things he didn't want to do. And then, two, yeah, you might have known they were going to run the ball, but I bet you didn't know Shanahan was going to break out some of those plays and play design to go with it, too. So, when you have that double whammy to go along with it, that's when you get steamrolled for like 300 yards in rushing.
And this gets back to a point that I've been kind of working on. I've run it by you through text, and we talked about it earlier this week. There's going to be a premium placed on finding guys who are the same level of badass roughneck that the 49ers players are, who don't need to practice hitting, who don't need full pad two-a-days, who don't need tackling to the ground in July and August when they can't do it anymore, to be able to do it when it's time to go out and play a game. The 49ers have those guys, and other teams need to be looking for those guys, because if you can't practice it, you better be instinctively wired to do it.
Right.
And teams are going to need more guys like that.
We've given him, you know, all the freedom. So if he sees something and he's got the green light to do whatever he needs to do to get us into a good play, we're not going to take that from him.
Rock, paper, scissors, Rodgers. What a shock. The guy who's making roughly 15% or less of what Aaron Rodgers makes this year is letting Aaron Rodgers call the plays as he sees fit at the line of scrimmage. Look, I knew this is where it was going to end. Guys, this isn't a shock. Chris, will you finally agree with me that they just should have kept all this stuff under wraps? We didn't need to know about it. We didn't need to be talking about it. Just let him go do the thing and not make it a talking point that we could obsess over, although I guess I should thank them. It gave us something to talk about for the last 8 weeks. But I think it would have been better for the team if we didn't know about any of this.
Well, maybe, yeah. I'm not going to disagree with you there. I don't know what went on with the pre-conversations to let it becoming a public conversation, but either way, Lafluer and Rodgers were very comfortable talking about it publicly. Hey, this is big. I mean, listen, I'm not trying to sit here and say Aaron Rodgers is like Peyton Manning at the line of scrimmage, but he's up there with people that orchestrate a lot of offense at the line of scrimmage on a weekly basis, and Lafleur is doing the right thing here. He's taking the pressure off himself. He doesn't want to get blamed for a loss week 1 or week 2 because Aaron Rodgers can't audible, so now he's kind of putting the pressure on Rodgers. Oh, you want your audibles? Here you go. Have fun. Run the offense. I hope you get in the right play because they're not going to blame me. They're going to blame you, and that's where it's smart by Lafleur too.
All right, Chris, I've got to ask you this question.
Of course.
The thought that I had at the top of the show, which basically was, is the real tension going to come over tempo of Matt Lafleur wanting this offense to run at basic breakneck speed, snapping the ball with 18 seconds left on the play clock, and Aaron Rodgers saying, hold on a minute, I want to survey the defense and see what the best thing is to do.
Yeah, that'll be a big question because you're right, Peter. They do want to do tempo, keep pressure on the defense. Don't sit there and let them audible, do things like that and get orchestrated as well. I'm sure they'll find a group of plays where they'll go, hey, this group of plays, we can just get up and go. It's good against any defense unless you just see something totally crazy. They're going to find the right limit or line into it, changing plays into what they feel comfortable with. Let's call it and run it play, as we'd call it in the NFL. So hopefully it works out. You know I'm rooting for it.
Here's the bottom line. No matter what the issue is, no matter what the hurdle is that they have to overcome, Rodgers is going to win. He's going to win. All these battles, he wins. And we saw the first one, and it was public. And the message to Matt Lafleur moving forward, and maybe this is why Rodgers took it public. You know what? If you're going to fight me, it's going to end up being public. Just give me my way, and we're all going to get along, and everything's going to be fine. That's exactly what we thought it was going to be when a new coach came in to work with Aaron Rodgers, given how much money he's making and how important he is to the team. 8 jobs were open as of yesterday. Now there are only 7. The Green Bay Packers have their head coach. The next name in a line that goes back to Curly Lambeau, Vince Lombardi, Mike Holmgren, Mike McCarthy, and now we have 39-year-old Matt Lafleur, 4 years older than his starting quarterback, the Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator who presided over an offense that finished 25th in the NFL this season.
This is all going to depend. What can Matt Lafleur do with Aaron Rodgers? And also, can he command a room?
I just have a feeling that I didn't do a very good job for our team, with our team.
For the second time in 3 years, and this time around it didn't take a final play, a Deshaun Watson magic act. It was a blowout. That's the magic. Nick Saban, worst loss ever, 44-16.
Just kind of give him the look over here, and then I just...
That's the play, not of the decade. That's the play of the century so far. We're 18-plus years in.
And it was 83 feet away, 27 yards and 2 feet. And a lot of people say, well, wait a second, he's standing on the 13-yard line. It's only 13 yards. Well, you got to learn the rules of trigonometry or whatever I'm thinking. Geometry.
Hypotenuse. Hypotenuse, baby.
The hypotenuse of the triangle. Clearly, if a guy is in his mid-60s, carrying a little bit too much weight, I think that was a smart idea by the Bucs, and it shows their seriousness. Especially.
Hey, Peter, it's not just that.
Yeah.
It's not just that.
Yeah.
He's had prostate cancer, he's had kidney cancer, and as a youth, he would drink paint. How about co-head coaches? Vance Joseph and Hugh Jackson. Head coach offense, head coach defense.
Yeah.
This weekend in Green Bay, the Packers take on the Oakland Raiders, and if and when Derek Carr is sacked by any of the Packers pass rushers, don't expect to see any celebrations. Matt Lafleur has ended the post-sack celebrations that guys like Zadarius Smith have been doing. And the concern is this. It takes too long, right? What if the offense is going to rush to the line of scrimmage for a fourth down play? Fourth and short, they're going to go for it. Well, it wouldn't be that short after a sack, but you get my point. They're rushing to the line, and you've got a guy who's 10 yards into the backfield who's got to hustle back, and maybe he's not going to be ready for the next snap. Or what if the punt team's got to get on the field? Whatever the case may be, there is a reason, even though the NFL has relaxed the rules regarding celebrations, there is a strategic reason to getting back to where you need to be or getting off the field so the next play can happen, and that's what Matt Lafleur wants Zadarius Smith and the rest of the Packers to stop doing. So hopefully you enjoyed the Zadarius Smith sack dances while they lasted, because they will be happening no more. Even though he may have plenty of sacks, we won't see the celebration.